right, we're live. We'll go ahead and get started here. Um, Before we jump in, as usual, okay, yeah, we're recording. Cool. Before we jump in, as usual, if anyone has any questions, drop them in the chat. I'll do my best to address them. But I think we're in a pretty straightforward spot here overall. I'll run through my list. I'll give kind of my personal views on the market, how I'm navigating the market, and probably get out of here in an hour, not shorter. I think it's just a pretty straightforward spot. Anything from anyone before we start? Cool. All right, I'll share my screen here and we'll jump in. This looks like Discord changed their user interface a little bit. Yeah, as usual, I always feel the need to touch on gold and silver. Because I really think that trade's starting to ramp upwards to the point where we may be getting to one sec. We may be getting to the point where it starts to accelerate a little bit, or at least continue pace and then eventually accelerate. This is just this fractal kind of superimposed. I was messing around with it. Silver, massive cup and handle. I know we've been talking about this for a long time. This is an absolutely massive 50-year pattern. You can call it ascending triangle if you will. All I know is when silver gets up into the 40s, I think there's going to be a lot of excitement around it, and I think it could just full send. This is something that I think can go considerably higher than what most people think. Keep in mind, silver ran for like over an 8-year period from like $1 to $50, like 50x. So like I think people think of silver as like super low volatility, and a lot of the time they'd be right. But there's periods of time, especially when inflation gets out of whack, where you can see silver go absolutely crazy. And you start getting into physical silver shortages or physical shortages, and you get massive spot premiums, people panic buying. The end of the day, like markets are super psychological, and you saw excuse me, you saw what happened when we got a toilet paper shortage, toilet paper scare a little while back. Shelves go empty. People are just they'll panic buy if they feel like there's going to be a shortage. Gold also ramping up. High time frame chart here, monthly. I was actually super. You can't get, to my knowledge, can't get coffee futures data. In trading view, going back to like before 2020 for whatever reason, coffee prices are through the roof. Up since COVID, up from about $100 to $430 per pound, or US. Yeah, I don't know. That's definitely not $430 per pound of coffee, but whatever units they measure in, this is up like 400 or 500%. Right. It is interesting because commodities prices have been getting pretty out of whack. Orange juice through the roof, coffee through the roof. Kind of a leading into, obviously coffee just makes up a very small portion of overall inflation. Inflation primarily driven by oil markets, in my opinion, energy markets, which have been starting to come down. But you look at like just one sample, or one asset, to look at some correlations here, and you do see a bit of overlap between rising inflation within a commodity and another commodity like gold. This is actually more, when I fitted this to silver, it was almost perfect, which is very interesting to me. But I only bring that up because I have already had it up on the chart. But gold overall, I mean, this thing's zooming. Remember, we were just looking at that cup and handle on silver. This was a high time frame cup and handle on gold, and we've already gotten a huge breakout and a huge move. Once that silver cup and handle goes, I think it's going to run super hard. Now, these are high time frame monthly charts. Like silver could be a 2026 play. It could be a 2027 play, just depending on how long it drags its feet. But I say all this because I do feel strongly that it is smart to be building positions in gold and silver with profits, right? If you can take profits out of crypto, toss it into like some long-term gold positions. I mean, worst case, like gold's probably not going to, worst case is you get a nasty drawdown of 44% over the course of multiple years. But also keep in mind, this was like zero interest rates, like super low interest rates, very low inflation. That is not the case right now. We still have elevated inflation. CPI came in high this morning, right? So until we truly see inflation under control, which I just don't think we're going to see, like very low inflation. I don't think we're going to see like sub 2% inflation for a while, even with oil prices coming down, even with Elon Musk and Doge cutting spending. I think the Republicans put forth like a bill today to expand the debt ceiling by like $4 trillion, something crazy. Yeah, I mean, regardless of, I'm all for cutting government spending, all for bringing down oil prices, all for tackling inflation in these other manners. But I really don't foresee the government continuing to or stopping printing money, or the Fed stopping printing money in the long term. So as usual, just reiterating gold and silver. Speaking of inflation, CPI this morning came in hot. Oh, come on. I want true inflation, US inflation rate. There we go. So a little bit predictable. And then the other thing is like CPI, these CPI readouts, these single data point readouts, not only are they lagged, but the market, like, I don't think the market cares about them that much. Market cares about a lot of other stuff until you get like to extreme levels in inflation, high or low. When we're sitting between 2 and 3% on Trueflation, we're sitting at like 3 and change, and like 3% inflation is really not that high historically, right? Like it's just not. You can have a 3% inflation rate, and if anything, hovering around 3% inflation, you could argue is good for assets like gold. It's good for risk assets. Why? Because if inflation's 3%, it starts to force money out of dollars, right? If inflation's a little bit higher than the target rate, starts forcing money out of dollars. Yes, or no, you don't get the quantitative easing, you don't get the rate cuts in the low rate cut environment that you would like, or the low interest rate environment that you would like to really juice assets. You don't get the quantitative easing that you would like to really juice assets. But you do get a situation where you can't really sit on dollars. If inflation's a little bit elevated, you do have to go out and seek a return in the market to offset higher, slightly higher inflation numbers. So CPI came in a little bit hot this morning, and the market pretty much shrugged it off fairly quickly. A little bit of a crash, and then kind of a full dip. I bring this dashboard up because directionally, this is usually a pretty good indicator, where we actually saw January. So today was February 12th. CPI came in, but it was CPI for January. Well, we saw kind of November, December, January inflation in the Trueflation dashboard was elevated. And then when did it drop off? January 31st to February 1st. So I do expect better inflation numbers come around March 12th. So next CPI date is March 12th. I would, if this trend continues, where we just saw a large drop off from like 2.6 and change, really even towards the end of January or mid-January, it was up at 3%, down to 2, which is essentially the target rate. That I would expect like really good inflation numbers to come in March 12th, which lines up, which would cause the market to price in rate cuts. We know that the Fed's sitting here and talking like they don't need to cut rates. But at the same time, they know like at the end of the day, their goal is to bring inflation down, and their goal is to cut rates. And we know Trump wants lower rates. We know Elon wants lower rates. Excuse me. So the end goal is to ultimately bring rates down. And we know rate cuts are, good for risk on. So a little less ideal for gold and silver, but in the short term, better for, crypto. So March 12th and like mid March in general really lines up well for our general, like tax selling fractal, which is, currently a bit, and I need to extend this out and, bring this out. We flip back positive, back green. In mid March, March 12th, 13th, right? So right now for Bitcoin, we're in a period of high tax selling. And this fractal right here, right, pretty much called the top in Bitcoin, which was around also the inauguration. So you had some speculative premium running into the inauguration. People kind of thinking that Trump was going to do something big immediately for crypto, which is, a reasonable thing to think. Is it not too out of the question? Is, the guy launched a meme coin 2 days before the inauguration. It's not crazy to think that he would try to sign an executive order that was super pro crypto off the bat. But we didn't see that, and obviously we started to take a hit with this kind of like tax selling fractal, where there's a lot of people that bought January 23rd or so last year that are in major profit right now, that have just hit their threshold for long-term capital gains tax. Meaning they've been highly incentivized to not sell until essentially Trump got into office, until essentially January 20th and onwards. And all of this Bitcoin is just kind of all these Bitcoin buys, which were heavily US user based from the ETF launch. A lot of this piled into the ETF, the Bitcoin ETF. A lot of these people sitting in massive profits in Bitcoin. I say massive profits. I mean, this is what, 138% higher a year later. And now you're going from 40% taxes on those purchases to 15% taxes with short-term capital gains. So there's a very large incentive here to sell or take some profits on a lot of this Bitcoin that was purchased here. Now, the second wave of this, I actually don't think is going to be that bad. I don't think it's going to be that bad because I think a lot of it got washed out in this massive chop period, where a lot of these buyers that probably bought at 50 to 70, a lot of them probably took profits fairly early on and aren't sitting and holding, waiting for their long-term capital gains tax. Obviously, there's going to be some, but I think a lot of these buys probably got challenged and washed out, especially on that August 4th dip where we got a liquidation down to 49K. And all these people were at least temporarily underwater and may have panic sold. So where do we finally get some relief on the tax selling? Starting roughly February 15th. So about 3 more days of tax selling. I think the worst of it is probably over. I know a lot of people are talking about a flush in Bitcoin below 90K or so, taking out the range lows. Maybe we get that in the next couple of days. Maybe we don't. There is, quite a bit of Bitcoin overhead here in terms of ask above us, right? So this is the bid ask in high block. This morning, CPI, we got a big flush. There was a bid down here ready to buy at about 94K. We started seeing markets recover, but now we're seeing a pretty nasty, not nasty, but a pretty significant ask above us, which we know just caps the upside for Bitcoin in the short term, right? It's hard for Bitcoin to run through that's 98K. It's hard for Bitcoin to kind of like take out this level when there's a lot of Bitcoin for sale up here, right? So yeah, not particularly short-term bullish. Altcoins are actually holding up extraordinarily well. So going back over to this chart, which, okay, I have this Bitcoin tax selling fractal extended out to March 13th, right? Which was essentially in line with our high March 14th, right? So that's where the tax selling really stops. But I think this tax selling, from late February to the first 2 weeks of March is going to be muted in comparison to the tax selling that we've undergone so far, right? So maybe we chop and kind of grind out a bottom here and, hopefully hold 90K, maybe one or two tests of 90K. Maybe we get the flush. I don't know. But come mid-March, I actually start to get a little bit more bullish. We've talked about for like a long time, like, hey, this cohort of tax selling, like into the inauguration and post-inauguration, like we want to have taken some profits. So hopefully, people, took profits, especially in altcoins. It's been particularly bad for altcoins. While Bitcoin's only bled from like 106 or and change, maybe it topped out at like what 108, down to 90. This hasn't been that bad, but altcoins obviously got decimated pretty hard since the inauguration, particularly meme coins, and even like going in, even post New Year's, right? Post New Year's, we had some rough, altcoin performance. But speaking of altcoins, I actually think like I've been kind of calling for alt season for a while now, really since like we broke out of this total like since here, right? And we did get kind of a short-term big run in altcoin dominance. So this is just total 3 divided by Bitcoin. So this is the performance of altcoins excluding ETH against Bitcoin. This is actually very reminiscent to what we had last cycle, which I'll talk about in just a second. But yeah, I think we got our breakout pump, and now we've gotten our ABC correction. And I'm pretty unabashedly bullish on altcoins. Not only from just looking at this chart, this breakout and kind of double retest, but also just looking at it fundamentally. Like basically everything that comes from a regulatory standpoint from here on onwards, anything that comes from legislation around crypto, it's like very pro altcoins versus Bitcoin. And that's not to say that Bitcoin doesn't benefit. I just like don't see the United States government passing a bill to outright buy Bitcoin. Now, some at the state level, there's been a lot of bills, strategic Bitcoin reserve bills introduced, which is very positive for Bitcoin. But I think most of the legislation and the regulatory clarity that David Sachs and Trump are talking about introducing, or Trump really isn't. I don't think he really knows a whole lot about crypto, but the Trump administration is talking about, and the SEC and the CFTC are working towards, just flat out benefits altcoins more so than Bitcoin, just in general. And it's not to say that it doesn't benefit Bitcoin, but Bitcoin doesn't have like regulatory issues. Like Bitcoin, there's a Bitcoin ETF. There's been a Bitcoin ETF. There's no question about whether or not Bitcoin's a security. It's not. The last administration, which was not particularly pro crypto, did not call Bitcoin a security. Like Bitcoin has not really been the negative recipient of bad legislation or lack of regulatory clarity. It's been the XRPs, the Uniswaps, the Aves, the Algorands, the HBARs, the stuff that's been served with Wells notices. It's been just altcoins in general. Ethereum, right? What was it? The Ethereum Foundation was served with a Wells notice, or maybe it was Consensus. Either I can't remember, but just Wells notices all over the place from the SEC in the altcoin space, and it's just been. I find it hard to believe that we're going to get regulatory clarity in the next 6 months. At least that's what David Sachs is saying, and then we don't see altcoins benefit from that. I just think that that altcoins just generally are going to benefit more. So we're actually seeing a very similar pattern in terms of what we'd want for an alt season is what we saw last cycle. So starting January 2021. Now, obviously, at the bottom here, this feels like the dead opposite of alt season. Even though altcoin season is technically like the move has started, and keep in mind, alt seasons are relatively brief in nature, right? If you go back to 2017, which actually 2017, yeah, this was alt season. This was like 60 days from bottom to top. Alt seasons are historically very, very short, but extraordinarily aggressive. You generally want to be like, if you wait for an alt season to fully give you like the move and confirmation before you get long, you've missed out on probably half of it, and you're probably going to be very you're like you essentially have 20 days, right? Like, so from bottom to top, this was a 30-day alt season. If you waited for a clean breakout of this level, you essentially had 20 days until the top. Chances are, if you're taking altcoin positions, like, you're likely to hold on for longer than 20 days and not be if 20 days goes by really, really fast. And even though alts pump a lot in those 20 days, you kind of feel like from a timing perspective, I haven't been in this investment that long. Why would I sell so early? So the point I'm trying to make here is that when we're getting to the point where we see a potential alt season developing, like, I don't care if I get long alts here and they pump, maybe say take some profits, and then I'm, like at break even or slightly underwater in terms of dominance, right? If you pick good alts, like, good alts are going to outperform the base level of all altcoins, right? Like, you're still going to be up on your altcoin positions if you're versus Bitcoin, if you're picking, outperformers, right? So prior alt season, just because I'm curious, lasted 136 days. 136 days from bottom to top. Now, let's just say February was the bottom. If we start to see I could be wrong about this, but if we start to see this last 60 to 100 days, you're talking about like May or June being the top for altcoins in general. Again, I think, my base case and my thesis is kind of that we start to see some altcoin dominance. This total 3 divided by Bitcoin start to creep upwards and upwards and upwards, and kind of chop around for the next really the next month, right? Maybe it's the next 2 weeks, but like I said, I think we can get some really positive CPI numbers around mid-March, early to mid-March. Tax selling really subsides in mid-March. And we'll be that much, a month closer to regulatory clarity in alts. And again, David Sachs said about 6 months. That would put us, regulatory clarity, quote unquote, needing to be priced in by June, July-ish, right? So all these things kind of line up to like indicate that there's a high probability, in my opinion, like, I think the risk reward, because alts versus Bitcoin are at lows, essentially historic lows, going back to, we haven't seen levels as low as that liquidation wick since 2020, March of 2021. Right. So I personally believe that we're in a situation where the chances of getting an alt season has dramatically increased over the next 3 months. So I want to be exposed to alts, and I want to be exposed to alts ideally from the bottom of an alt season for a 60 to 120 day period, and be the benefactor of a large move in altcoins versus Bitcoin. So that is my thesis behind why, like, you may have seen me on Twitter, like, calling for alt season. Like, no, does it feel like alt season down here? No, it doesn't feel like alt season yet. But if you wait for it to feel like alt season, now all of a sudden you're in a tough position because you're trying to FOMO into altcoins at range highs, right? At resistance up here. Like, if you're waiting for this, you may get a pullback, you may get a shakeout, you might be underwater on some alts, you can move down 30 to 40% correction before this thing starts running again. So it's just a tougher spot. So I'd rather just take a chance from the lows here when we have a really nice repeating pattern of our downtrend, our breakout, right, our ABC correction that took out our prior lows, took out the, swooped below the downtrend line. We're seeing the exact same thing happen again, right? So then it's just a matter of, okay, we think like alt seasons, again, the thing about alt season, like, and the reason I'm willing to take a risk here is because I don't have to be right about alt season that often to make a ton of money. Like, let's say I'm totally wrong about alt season and I, manage my risk and I lose like 20%. Let's say I lose like 20% of my entire portfolio. Like, that's a bad outcome, but if if I'm right, if I call for alt season like 3 times and I'm right 1 out of 3 times, and then the time I'm right, I make 400% on my portfolio, and ideally like 6, 7, 800, 900%, because we're ideally picking good alts that are going to outperform everything, outperform the what is it? The index, outperform the totality of altcoins. I'm going to be profitable. So I don't have to be correct if I catch the entire move, or most of the move, with size in good alts. All right. So that's the thought process here. Could be totally wrong. As we speak, like, zoom in here to like the hourly, we're seeing alts do really well here. We're starting to see them break out. This is a messy chart here, but they capitulated. That was the low, and we saw this consolidation and back test this morning, and now they're starting to run again. XRP looks good. XLM looks good. All these suit coins look good. Nano, Litecoin. Yeah, a lot of stuff looking really, really solid here. PopCat longs are starting to pump. Hyperliquid looking good. Even though I'm jury's still out on Hyperliquid. I'm fading it. I'm kind of chopping around in and out of longs and shorts and Hyperliquid, and I'm not sold on being long. I think it'll pump, but I think there's a lot of people that are looking to sell in the 30s, and I think the upsides, I could be wrong. Maybe it pumps to $50, $60, $70, but I am a little bit cautious about Hyperliquid personally. This is a view that I've been paying very close attention to in terms of trying to catch strength, right? If we're in an alt season, we want to be paying attention to what are the breakout strongest assets. You see recently it's been Nano, but then it's been Litecoin, Cardano. Cardano getting an ETF filing recently has been boosting it. BNB. Some interesting stuff going on with BNB. I think CZ, founder of Binance, recently tweeted about potentially like interacting with some meme coins and maybe posting his dog's name to try to attract some meme coin volume to BNB. This comes at a time where Solana's like been underperforming greatly. You see the very bottom of the barrel worst performer on this entire chart is Solana. Has some big unlocks coming. CZ's a pretty sharp guy. Pretty calculated. One sec. CZ's a pretty sharp and calculated guy. He probably sees this as a pretty clear opportunity of like Solana being weak, just to take some capital away from Solana, take some dominance away from Solana and move it to BNB, just by kind of tweeting like I'm sure CZ is has some pretty solid analysts over there that maybe they're long alts. Maybe they think it's going to be alt season. I don't know, but CZ is starting to get more active on the Twitter timeline talking about altcoins, coming at a very interesting inflection point for Solana going into these unlocks. So something to note. But a lot of times like these spaghetti charts can just be really nice for kind of finding where, pockets of strength. What is strong and why might it be strong? We see BNB, Cardano, Litecoin with like 2 out of 3 of these, top 4, or 2 out of the top 4, Litecoin and Cardano of like ETFs in the pipeline. So I find that pretty interesting. I saw Shiba Inu this morning was looking pretty strong. And the chart was looking good. So long Shiba Inu, like if my thesis is like, hey, it's going to be alt season soon, I want to be looking to build some altcoin positions, despite the fact that I do think it could be a slower, choppier start to alt season. I still think there could be some shakeouts. I still think that, alts in general could go lower from where they're at right now. I still want to be looking to build some positions slowly into things that are showing pockets of strength, right? So if we believe, and it's kind of my base case here, but if the base case belief is that this altcoin, dominance, or total 3 divided by Bitcoin, if that wick was the low, right? Like we can build some very small positions, starter positions here in some, strong alts, or alts that are showing strength off that liquidation. and be in a pretty forgiving spot if this ends up, trickling upwards over the next couple months. Um, so, even if it does go lower or, lower from where it's at right now, you have this nice protected wick down here. And a lot of the individual coins have that, strong, like, look, Shiba Inu up 10% today. I posted this morning in the chat. I was scanning charts this morning. Look at the spaghetti chart. Excuse me. Scanning charts, and this looked like the cleanest price action that that I could find on any altcoin. I don't have a thesis for Shiba Inu, but the chart looked really, really solid. Maybe, just pockets of Ethereum strength. Now, I'm still very skeptical. Like I said, I'm still very skeptical that meme coins in general outperform. I don't think they're going to outperform. Maybe some of the large cap ones like Shiba Inu and Pepe do well in the event of strong performance from Ethereum and ETH dominance going up and just kind of alt season in general. But I'm very cautious about chasing anything under like $1 billion market cap meme coin. I just, I've got a Mew and Popcat long in basically, but I kind of gave my thesis on that in my channel, is simply that I just think that they're going to get a dead cat bounce, and that dead cat bounce can be like significantly. They just ran out of sellers. They were over shorted, right? That dead cat bounce can be very high, right? A dead cat bounce from, entry, call it 25 cents into this range, that's 182% move out of something like Popcat just to do one of those. That's 182% from slightly lower than where it's at right now. So if you feel confident that something's kind of bottomed out and run out of sellers and get a dead cat bounce, I'm happy to long it. But I don't want to delusionally buy Popcat hoping that it goes back up to all-time highs. And I could be wrong, and maybe it does. Maybe Popcat does go back to all-time highs, but that would be the sell signal of all sell signals. That is like, if Popcat's at all-time highs, I'm getting out of all crypto. Because it means like speculative alts are like way too high. And that's in the face of all these other altcoins that are launching. So when you have Dave Portnoy talking about meme coins and shilling meme coins, and you've got 8chan, right? The 8chan meme coin launched last night, and you've got Trump with his meme coin, and then you've got a Melania token launching, and you've got more and more people trying to take advantage of extracting money from this space through meme coin launches. I think there's like 2 rappers or something recently that launched their own meme coins, right? What happens on those new launches is people take their Popcat positions, right? And they rotate them out of Popcat because Popcat's, at elevated levels. They've got a lot of unrealized profit. They might have got into Popcat at 60 cents and Popcat's at $1.40, right? But then they see Trump token launch, or whenever that launched, January 20th, right here, right? They get out of Popcat and then they sell all their Popcat to go long the Trump token, right? So when you constantly have new stuff coming around, let's go. A little background noise there. All right, you have constant sell pressure on some of these larger meme coins because the new stuff is launching and taking liquidity, right? But all that to say, like the thesis behind being long some meme coins right now is just because I was in the process of like building a Pepe short and building some shorts in meme coins, but they were just already super oversold, and you started to see some market wide signs of seller exhaustion. I do think that ultimately a lot of these meme coins will end up lower than they are, currently. Even Popcat, even Pepe. I think Pepe can go down quite a bit. I'm interested in shorting it, but I want to see it, like I still think that they can run 100 to 200% before starting to move downwards again. So this would be an interesting short up here, closer to maybe $1 billion market cap. Maybe it would overshoot the fibs, right, or risk reward levels, and be a good short up here. Pepe, we know there's a lot of tax selling. Bitcoin's going through its bulk of tax selling right now. What do we know about Pepe's tax selling? We know Pepe has a lot of tax selling. Go to the log chart. We know Pepe has a lot of tax selling coming in late February, right? Late February, which maybe we get, or our thesis is kind of like maybe some alt season kicks up around March. But from February to March, maybe we get a big capitulation in Pepe. Maybe we get a Bitcoin correction, right? Maybe we can ride Pepe up to a right shoulder and then maybe short up here. That would be, interesting to me if we started to see a right shoulder. Maybe Pepe is weaker than I think it is, and we only see a run to here. But if I can get a short from a higher position in meme coins while I'm long higher quality coins, then that's ideal. But for right now, I think the seller's just exhausted, and we're getting a pretty decent bounce. Started to see like altcoin dominance going up and starting to bottom out, and wanted to abandon those shorts and get long for the time being. Ondo, I'm bullish on Ondo. I've built a pretty substantial, I say substantial, but not unsubstantial Ondo position here in this range. Been very, very strong. One of my primary theses around alt season is the tokenization and real world asset thesis. So like think of it, tokenization, real world assets, and regulatory clarity. Essentially bringing real world assets and tokenizing real world traditional finance assets on the blockchain. Ondo is at like the center of this, and I don't love the fully diluted valuation. It's got a lot of overhead in terms of VCs, vesting tokens and whatnot, but they're doing all the right things. Partnered with XRP, partnered with Stellar Lumens, partnered with World Liberty Financial. Like Ondo's crushing it right now. And they seem like the clearest play to me on tokenization, on the tokenization thesis. In addition to XRP and XLM and other suit coins, which these other suit coins are more, which I know I've got Pepe and Hype here in the suit coins. I just dragged those there to kind of keep an eye on them, but they're not. Let's go over back to Ondo. These other suit coins like XRP, XLM, Algorand, HBAR, those are more a little. They are the real world asset in tokenization thesis, but they're more like the regulatory clarity thesis and ETF thesis. Like I think XRP is getting an ETF. HBAR's already got ETF filings, right? So Ondo, though, is like really a strong tokenization play, which again, we're not out of the woods here. Like this is looking really solid. It's held this level a ton. It's also had a lot of sellers up here. But if it can break out of this, consolidation, we got a nice, bull flag here. I think it can run. So I do like Ondo here if it can run out of this, consolidation. But yeah, not to reiterate too much, but the four kind of core narratives that I find the most interesting and I think are the highest percentage things to be betting on are tokenization and regulation, right? I would kind of lump those together. So like tokenization, regulation, real world assets. That is basically everything that I've got in and you can also kind of lump in like the ETF trades, like the altcoin ETF trades in there, which is why I kind of have Litecoin in this sector as well. But it's essentially XRP, XLM, Algorand, HBAR, Ondo, Chainlink, which I'm not the biggest fan of right now just because the chart doesn't trade amazing. I don't love this is just to me a much slumpier, weaker chart than a lot of other stuff. But still, I think fits into the thesis. Aave kind of has that slumpy chart as well. A little less interested in it here. If the chart starts looking better, I'll look to build a long position. Like I said, all these above, Ondo, HBAR, Link, Aave, Litecoin, just basically the ETF trade and the high time frame, very high time frame chart pattern here. Looks very similar to Monero, which I'll get into in just a second. Looks very similar to Monero, similar in nature to kind of XRP. This is a huge ascending triangle. The targets on these things can just be ridiculous if we go into like a full-on alt season. Nano generally trades as beta to Litecoin. So if I'm bullish on Litecoin, I'm even more bullish on Nano. Nano's been trading pretty strongly off this. Like now, this is another reason like to keep in mind, like to pay attention to relative strength. Nano's super interesting here. Why? Because it had this huge liquidation on February 2nd, and it's the way it reacted. It led off the bottom. It had a short consolidation, broke through a downtrend line, zipped up, pumped, and is now consolidating up here. That price action, despite it being a lower cap token, is much stronger and just all around better looking than something like Aave, right? Aave had the liquidation.
Go. Oh, yeah.
Got some background noise. If I find you, I will mute you. Guys, if you don't mind muting, if you're not already muted. Look, I mean, just look at the difference. Like Aave, again, like I like the thesis. I think it fits really well into the regulatory clarity and the new SEC regime, but the price action is not as strong. So I prefer to be building positions or have positions in stronger assets, right? And right now, Nano which has historically been a very weak asset, is showing a lot of strength. And the fact that it's showing it led off the lows is also in large part one additional reason for me being a little bit more bullish on altcoins in alt season over the next couple of months, because generally speaking, when Nano and Litecoin start running, it's the end, right? It's spelling, it's either the start of a real alt season, or when they pump historically, you kind of see these be the last altcoins to pump. But the fact that they're pumping first is very bullish in my opinion. Monero, I think, is a very straightforward trade as well. High time frame. I've been building a Monero position as well. This is like a crazy bullish. I say crazy bullish, and there's no guarantees here, but this is a very bullish high time frame chart, trying to make like this massive kind of cup and handle pattern, Adam and Eve bottom, whatever you want to call it. But high time frame, it's like a big ascending triangle. You have this funneling sideways range for a very long period of time. This is a weekly chart. And it was in this sideways range for 900 days, so almost 3 years, and is just now starting to break out of this sideways range. You had massive FUD with the France banning Monero or making Monero illegal. It shrugged it off and bounced all the way back up to its recent highs. On the 3-day, it's just starting to grind upwards. Whenever you have something break out of a long-term sideways range and then start this grinding period of time, this grind upwards, this is accumulation. It's broken out of its accumulation range and is now starting to accumulate upwards. Doesn't mean that there's no guarantees here, but it's just a very strong chart. And for that reason, I very much like it. It reminds me of this kind of price action down here where it started to grind upwards and then started popping and then ran massively. So big fan of Monero here. Also, I think like the thesis makes sense. Like a more speculative thesis is that you got Elon Musk and Doge going out and essentially exposing like a massive amount of fraud. Like Elon retweeted something today that in the DC area, the Google searches for fraud defense attorney have spiked. Like there's more, like people searching for defense attorneys for fraud at an elevated rate in the last week or two. So if you look at all this money that is going unaccounted for and has disappeared, I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of it try to move off the map entirely through something like Monero. And Monero is like the most liquid privacy coin there is. It's the largest market cap privacy coin. So if you're looking for something, you're looking to hide money, if you're a criminal or guilty of fraud, you're probably not going to care about the price of Monero. You're probably just going to buy Monero. You're not going to be price sensitive, and that's just going to push the price up. That is a little bit more of a speculative thesis, but I think it might make sense, and the chart is bullish, so I don't mind kind of leaning into that a little bit here. But yeah, just this grinding upwards on Monero makes me bullish. So I've been building a position. Now, I've been building positions, nothing insane, just small positions. Like got a Litecoin long on, I've got some Nano, I've got some Monero, I've got some Onda. I'm not trying to get split into like too many different, too many different things. But I am building some small positions within these specific narratives, like within and into things that altcoins that I do think have really solid charts. Um, I feel a lot more comfortable in this Monero chart than I do in something like, um, you know, SPX 6900, which could end up running hot in or whatever. But if there's a new Ethereum meme that comes along, you're going to see some capital rotate out of it. I don't want to play the meme coin game outside of just some just very, very beat up charts. Like I was kind of bullish on the idea of Popcat bottoming out. So, what's the counterpart to Popcat? Mu. So, caught a little Mu long from probably down here at like 29 and now it's at like 31. Nothing crazy, but again, these dead cat bounces in some of these meme coins, you run the risk reward fib levels. If you even get that's 68% from down here, that's 80, 90, 100%. A little bit of leverage, tight invalidation can be super profitable. So that's been kind of where my mind has been at. Yeah, we've got some time here. That's the long and short of it. That no pun intended there. That's most of it. I do want to briefly just show why are people getting excited, or not a lot of people, but why are the people that are into precious metals getting excited about precious metals here? This is silver. This is silver on the monthly normalized for M2 money supply. So normalized for the amount of money that they've printed into circulation. You see the bulk of silver's time is spent within this range, right? And we kind of saw what the thesis was or what the idea was on Monero in a huge sideways range. This is a monthly chart. So silver's been in this range against the money supply, M2 money supply, for a very long period of time, and starting to grind upwards towards the top of the range. If it breaks out of this range, it's got a lot of, pent up energy. It's been rounding out here. If it does break out of the top of this range, historically, when we see silver pump against the money supply, you're talking about, the last move we saw, you're talking about a 285% move, almost a 300% move from where we're at right now. And silver's already been grinding upwards. Historically, towards the top of this range to some of these other highs up here, you're talking about 400 or 500% for silver, with the 1980 squeeze, silver squeeze, 2000% higher. So just the potential on silver right now, it's just like we're getting to a time frame where it's just becoming more and more attractive, where you get more and more, like after a nice rounded bottom like this, it starts grinding upwards. You get to a more and more likely period of time where you might see a very positive reaction to the upside over a short period of time. And that's kind of, why I'm getting excited about silver, even though it could be a 2-year process. It could be, 24. I just want to build a big spot position, unleveraged. And same thing, if we normalize for the money supply, gold or the money supply, we're talking to a range high again, 1980 inflation scare, Volcker, super high rates. You're talking, 350% on gold. But even from where we're at right now to range highs, which it does look, in my opinion, like we're headed to range highs, talking about like another 40-50% on gold. You're talking about what, $4,500, $5,000 gold for something that just normally feels super safe to be in and relatively risk off to be in. To have 40+% potential and over the next year or two, like I think is super solid for a risk off portion of your portfolio. Last thing. Okay, so I going back to the kind of the four narratives that I see. One is the tokenization, regulation, real world asset narrative. The other is precious metals, which I think is, pretty straightforward. We talked about gold and silver forever. I think or for a long time. I think it could take a longer time to kind of play out, but when they start moving rapidly, they can squeeze pretty high. The other one's all, the third one's very obvious. It's AI. For that, I'm primarily exposed. My primary AI exposure is Virtuals Protocol, in large part because I got such a good entry point. I've taken a lot of profit out, but I still have substantial exposure to Virtuals Protocol, and I do think that they're the best team in AI, and best team in crypto AI. And they're extraordinarily well bankrolled. They make a ton of fees on their protocol. They just moved to Solana. Like, I know, like, it's down, the chart's down quite badly, but if this thing chops out a bottom and starts moving up or up again, and AI just maintains durability as a narrative, I really do like Virtual longer term. Now, if you're looking into like stocks or whatever, I guess there's Nvidia, there's Palantir. Those have run a lot, so I don't love the idea of aping into Nvidia or Palantir here. I want to buy value, or a breakout of some sort. But AI is just a super obvious, fairly durable narrative. And then the fourth one is something I've talked about less, but have been bringing up for feels like months now, is robotics, humanoid robotics in particular. And while I've yet to do more deep level research on, maybe some lower mid cap or value plays in that region, the obvious one is Tesla. Like the obvious play for humanoid robotics is Tesla, which obviously Tesla's at a very large market cap, but it's seen a pretty steep correction here. I've kind of got one level marked out here that just hit. I added a little bit of Tesla down below 330. Nothing crazy. I think it's just a little bit oversold in short term because they slightly missed earnings a few weeks ago or days ago. I don't know how long it was. But buying 30+% corrections in Tesla has historically aged quite well. Now, I know, like, there's a lot of people that I think Tesla, in large part, like, for one, it ran super hard after the election, right? We talked about buying it down here at like 215. I got super lucky with that 215 to 220 buy because they beat earnings randomly, and then Trump won the election. Tesla ended up running super hard. This is, I mean, a fairly normal retrace on this entire move. I mean, this is not even a 50 level retracement yet. 50 level retracement would be 315, right? So this is off the kind of move that Tesla's had from, April of last year. This is still fine. And I think a lot of people are kind of selling Tesla in large part because of the earnings, the slight miss on earnings, but also the antics from Elon. But the problem with the thing with that is, like, yeah, Elon's antics, with Doge and changing his username on Twitter and just kind of being a troll in general. Short term, no, it's not great for Tesla price action, but if Tesla beats earnings at any point in the future, if Tesla gets a large contract for humanoid robotics or robo-taxis, like, it's going to pump. And it's going to pump super hard like it did off the lows. So not sitting here trying to sell anyone on Tesla. I just don't see yet. And again, I haven't done like a deep dive. I just don't see any other great options for the humanoid robotics trade. And considering I personally have a really good entry in Tesla from like 215 and was able to add on a 30% correction for the first time since that 215 entry, I feel I like Tesla here. I think as far as a large cap stock goes, it's fairly comfortable. Only thing I don't love is just the all-time high deviation. It's never really what you want to see, is a break of all-time high and then trading back down below it in the short term. I mean, this could come all the way back down to 250. I'd probably add at 250 if it did. I'd probably add at 300. I added at 330-ish. I'd add again at 300, and then I'd probably add again at 250. And then if we can't hold 250, then something's up, something's going on. Let me see if there's any questions here. All right. JLP has been up only since inception. What happens to it in a bear market? It probably goes down, but just less than Solana, Ethereum, and Bitcoin. All right, because JLP is 50% stable coins. So it's just going to have muted volatility to the downside, and a lot of that will be offset by yield. So let's just say Bitcoin, ETH, and Solana goes down. It's mostly Solana, right? So let's say Solana goes down 70% in a bear market. You're probably looking at JLP going down about 30%. So it still has downside. It's just very muted in comparison to Solana. What are 5 good alts that I think we covered a lot of alts. So yeah, I'm not going to list all 5 because I feel like I listed off about 10 that I'm looking at. Litecoin, Monero, Nano, XRP, Stellar, basically Ondo. Thoughts on Aptos? I haven't been paying attention to Aptos at all. It's just layer ones in general, I think, are just bad trades. I say layer ones, like basically Solana and ETH competitors, I feel like are pretty bad trades just in general. Like I'm not interested in Sui. I'm not interested in Aptos. I just think layer one, like the Sui trade, the SUI trade is primarily, I think, speculative based on Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, or Meta rather, getting involved with it, because I think the devs were former Facebook and Meta developers. And if Mark Zuckerberg endorsed Sui and Facebook were to start adopting the Sui ecosystem, that'd be very bullish for it. But that's the main thesis there. But I can't stand the idea of like just your Solana Solana basically has won that race for a high throughput chain, like a high throughput layer one chain. It's got the best products on it. It's got the best developers on it. It's got the best liquidity out of all the fast chains. It's got the best liquidity, the most activity, the most retail users onboarded. Base is the next best competitor, and they don't have a token yet. I think they may launch a token. But yeah, I just don't love the idea of these alternative layer ones. Now you look into something like XRP or XLM, a little bit different. You're not going after retail users. You're talking about tokenizing assets or payments infrastructure for institutions, cross-border payments. What needs to happen for a significant amount of normies to be drawn to the crypto sector? Do you see a specific catalyst happening? Tokens basically. So this is my thesis, is that it's institutional adoption that's going. And I've seen, I think the founder of XRP, or one of the David Schwartz, one of the founders of XRP, was talking about this. I've seen this thesis tossed around, is that this quote unquote alt season, or like it's basically been recently a retail bear market, like a meme coin bear market with but it feels like an institutional grade like bull market. Like institutions are super excited because of the regulatory clarity that's coming down the pipeline. So I personally, that's like the suit coin thesis, is like XRP, XLM, HBAR, Ondo, like these coins that benefit from regulatory clarity are probably going to get institutional flows. At least that's my thesis. That's what I think is going to happen. I could be wrong, but I think institutional money is going to lead here, and retail money is going to be pretty drowned out, and the retail coins are going to underperform, right? So if we see, we might still see some meme coins, meme coin rotations and some meme coin funds, meme coin fund happen, but the meme coin space and retail space has become so extraordinarily extractive and cutthroat. Like your average retailer who has no experience in these markets, they really can't like make money in the space, because they're by the time they hear about Dave Portnoy's jail stool meme coin that blew up, they're buying at 150 million market cap. Now it's down at 90 million market cap, might not come back. They're buying the top. They're the people buying at 200, 250 million market cap because they're seeing Dave Portnoy talk about it. Like, oh, I'm going to buy some of this. And then boom, they're down 60%. There's nothing that they can just kind of buy and hold and perform with. Whereas like institutions, if they start pushing money into XRP, XL, like suit coins and coins that benefit from regulatory clarity, stuff like even Uniswap or Aave or things that are getting ETFs, it's just a lot. It's not extractive in nature. Like when you buy a meme coin, like there's like 4 or 5 different parties that are profiting off that meme coin and taking a cut before a retail investor is even able to make money off of it. You've got the MEV extraction from Jito. You've got Jupiter taking a fee. You've got Radium taking a fee. You've got the devs making money, keeping some supply. You've got the team taking some supply. You've got insiders. You've got snipers that were early to it, all making money before your average retail investor. So it's just so extractive. I'm not bullish on retail coming into the space for a while until basically XRP pumps to $7 plus, and then retail will probably get involved. But they might then get involved with the coins that are outperforming rather than the meme coins. So that is why I am fading meme coin again. Apart from I'm trying to like margin trade a dead cat bounce in Popcat and Mew, which is risky. It might not pan out. It might be less of a bounce than what I want to see. I could be, I could mess up on it, but just in general, in terms of what I'm like wanting to build positions in for like the majority of 2025, or if we start to see alts pick up, obviously that time frame shrinks to like 90 to 120 days or 60 to 120 days for an alt season run. I'm building in stuff that I think institutions are going to be interested in, not retail, because I just don't necessarily see retail money sticking. Like retail moves in, they buy a meme coin. They buy the Trump meme coin at $50, and now it's like 15. They've lost money in a month. They've lost 60% of their funds that they've moved into this space in a month. It's just so extraordinarily extractive for retail that I'm not bullish on a retail based alt season. And obviously there's a different sector of retail that does enjoy, XRP and some HBAR and whatnot. But that is not like the meme coin retail. That is kind of like that's again why I'm a little bit more bullish on these coins like XRP, because when retail buys, a lot of times they just stick their money in, and they like traditionally retail invests with a mindset of hodling. Like they buy the S&P 500 and hodl for 5 to 10 years, or 40 plus years if it's for like the investment time frame for traditional retail is built on that kind of framework of invest in the S&P 500, you buy Apple stock and you wait 20 years, right? So when the retail that's in XRP, like they buy it and they don't plan on selling it for, next week. The retail that's investing in meme coins, they're either getting destroyed or they're having to rotate out after like the half-life on some of these meme coins is like 4 hours, right? They pump for 4 hours and then they dump. So yeah, that is kind of the backbone of the thesis behind being more interested in suit coins versus retail meme coins. Eden Layer, I believe, has delayed their launch until until late February, early March. And I did go on board as an advisor with them, and that was my own recommendation and another advisor's recommendation that they hold off on launching until late February, early March. Just let this market kind of bottom out a little bit before they launch. What is the best platform for pair trading? Probably, I mean, you can any platform you can short on. So like Bybit, if you want to be totally on chain, I guess Hyperliquid is the place to be right now. It has the best liquidity, but Bybit, BingX, Hyperliquid, wherever you can short. I stay away from leveraged ETFs personally. Like you can get all the leverage you want on gold and Tesla through call options. I prefer call options if I'm trying to get leveraged on something. But if you don't understand call options or if you don't understand how to trade options and you do want some leverage, um, I suppose you could use leverage ETFs. I just have zero experience with them. Still like virtual protocol. Are real world assets focused on precious metals a play considering they intersect on two positive situations? Yeah, I'm very bullish on whoever figures out how to tokenize gold and with significant liquidity. Obviously, there's Pax G on Ethereum, but it doesn't have high amount of liquidity. My guess is that it'll be XRP or Ondo or some combination of Ondo finance on the XRP ledger that has the best, most liquid gold market. But yes, I love the idea of any protocol driving a lot of liquidity to and like BlackRock wants to tokenize. Like Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, has been very adamant multiple times. He wants to tokenize everything. He wants to tokenize stocks. He wants to tokenize metals. He wants to tokenize currencies. Like he's very. They're an investor, and BlackRock's an investor in Ondo. So yeah, any platform that's tokenizing, treasuries, currencies, precious metals, I'm quite bullish on. I haven't seen anything that's been able to drive a massive amount of liquidity in terms of a gold market on chain yet, but it is something that I'm very interested in if I do see it happen. A lot of the tokenized gold protocols, they just don't have liquidity. Even the biggest one, Pax G, just doesn't have liquidity for, like, if you're trying to buy like $5 million worth of gold, like you're going to buy it in the commodities markets or the ETF market versus on chain. Yeah, if there's a gold or silver squeeze, yeah, you take significant profits at that time. You don't want to, if gold runs to $5,000 to $10,000, you probably want to take profits. Same with silver. Silver runs to like $200 to $400. Definitely want to be taking profits because those pumps do turn around and end up dumping over time. Yeah, virtuals is definitely a retail coin, but at the same time, there's I haven't found like a like an AI suit coin, and I still want exposure to AI. So why I'm not like massively exposed to to AI as a narrative. It's primarily through Virtuals protocol. I just think they're a really good team. But yeah, it does suffer from the same kind of problem as retail in general. Um, so yeah, I mean, if meme coins in general suffer, then yeah, like AI and AI agent coins may suffer as well. But I do think that it is a fancier quote unquote narrative than straight up meme coins. But yeah, that is the counterpoint, for sure. Pepe, I don't love. I really like. Just depends on how high ETH goes. Think of Pepe as a measure, like a function of unrealized PNL in Ethereum. Right? Pepe and Shiba Inu, number one ETH meme coins. Pepe does a lot of volume. So if Ethereum runs, Pepe is going to run to some degree. Right now, there's not a lot of unrealized. What do I mean by unrealized PNL is like a lot of traders up a significant amount on Ethereum, right, on their Ethereum positions. Right now, in general, Ethereum, because we've been trending down, most people who own Ethereum most recently bought in this range. Well, we're now below that range, right? So there's basically no PNL, unrealized PNL in Ethereum, right? Nobody who's recently bought Ethereum is up significantly, right? But when you talk about like October of 2023 and I don't know for certain, but if I'm guessing here and we overlay Pepe, I would imagine we see a pretty large Pepe run. Yeah, again, right? When that unrealized P&L in Ethereum is high, and like everybody who's recently bought Ethereum is in profit, you get the rotation into Pepe and you get a massive pump, right? So in this period of time, you had like this huge unrealized P&L. Pepe here, we got the Coinbase listing. You also had the Ethereum ETF, I believe, come in through here, maybe, or maybe it was over here. I don't know. But you had like everybody who had recently bought Ethereum in profit. It looked like it was breaking out. Pepe ran. Now everyone who's recently bought Ethereum is not in profit anymore, and Pepe's down towards lows. Now, if ETH, now I'm not super bullish on ETH in general, just because I think Solana is a more performant layer one. I think the big push towards XRP, like I don't love Ethereum. I think Ethereum has a lot of bag holders that want to get out of their positions as well if it pumps. So while I'm not super bearish on ETH, I just don't love ETH here. But yeah, I mean, if ETH starts to run back up and takes out these range highs, and this was the bottom, and everybody who buys Ethereum on the way up is in profit, like, yeah, Pepe is going to pump again. Question is, like, I'm not super bullish on meme coins. So if this forms a right shoulder here into all this tax selling, right? Remember, March, late February to March of last year was the big markup in Pepe. This is where the uptrend, you have a lot of buyers in here that are in profit that may be waiting for long-term capital gains tax, right? You get your right shoulder and then, into a short. So maybe Pepe underperforms. Maybe it can run all the way up to new highs up here, and then we get a short up there. But yeah, it really just depends on ETH performance, which I'm not crazy bullish on ETH outperforming. Now that being said, I do think ETH Bitcoin has likely bottomed out, but we'll see. Miggles, I mean, the Coinbase is like, I'm not really interested in speculating on, like, yes, I think problem is Coinbase has dragged their feet on a lot of listings. I think Coinbase dropped the ball and they screwed up. Then they listed Toshi, and Toshi ran to like a $250 to $300 million market cap. So you're looking at Miggles at a $70 million market cap. In the upside, if Coinbase lists it, is like what, a 3 to 5x, right? Because we saw what happened when they listed Toshi. It ran to 250 to 300 million market cap. That was the first meme coin from Base that they listed. The second meme coin that they list is probably going to have diminishing returns. So we say like maybe Coinbase lists it and it runs to 200 million. Well, that's like a 3x from where it's at right now. So I don't love the Miggles risk reward because I think Coinbase has just dropped the ball on meme coin listings. I think they're just so far behind and out of touch with reality. The fact that they listed Peanut and like all these other Solana meme coins first, I think is just put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth. And like even like they're listing Popcat, and Popcat's not pumping super hard. It is moving upwards, and it is a positive thing that they're listing Popcat, but I don't know. It just depends on how big of an alt season we get and if meme coins can make a comeback. But the problem with that is like, okay, they list Miggles, it pumps. There's like 90,000 other meme coins that have launched in the meantime and pulled liquidity away. So these exchange listings just become exit liquidity events, exit pumps. Yeah, virtual moving to Solana is a positive, I think. More liquidity. Okay. We ran to 615. Yeah, I think we'll wrap it up there. I'll drop the recording here shortly. I hope everyone has a great rest of your evening, rest of your week. I hope these are helpful. Apologies if they're not, but I hope they are helpful. Like I said, I think it's relatively straightforward if you kind of like dissect what's going on right now. I think it's a positive risk reward to be betting on alt season. It just depends on altcoin selection. One more month, I think. Now that being said, like I still think there's like a month of kind of sketchy, maybe chop. I get more bullish from a time frame perspective if we can get through these next couple of weeks. All right, let's wrap it up there. Thanks so much, guys. Catch you next time. Wednesday, same time next week, Wednesday, 5 p.m. Peace.